to another episode of the Wealthy Boss Show. I'm your host, Mariah Seacrest Comer. We are discussing such a fun topic in today's episode, the mind-body benefits of plants and nature. So if you know of any overworked, over-connected, over-digitalized entrepreneurs that hang out on your Facebook page, please go ahead and click the share button, send it to them. We can learn together. This topic is going to be so good. So I have just been really looking forward to doing this training with you as I've done some research and prepared my speaking notes for today. I got so excited about all the science and research that's behind what kind of benefits can be available to us for our health and our well-being that are just so stinking simple. And we're going to talk about ways to make them even more practical as we build in more exposure to nature, both into our workday and in our play. It's going to be so fun. Now, I will say that each of the tactics or strategies that we look at in this episode, honestly, we could do a whole episode on each one of them. And I'm totally game for that. So if you feel like one of these topics really resonates with you and you want to go deeper, of course, I'll be linking to some resources in the show notes. But if you feel like you want to dedicate a whole episode to diving deeper into any one of these things, let me know, and I will certainly do my best to maybe find an expert who specializes in one of these fields to come in and do a more in-depth talk. But I know that just starting you out with these basic strategies is already going to get you excited and get you eager to start adding a little bit more vitamin N to your life. So we don't spend a lot of time out of doors these days. You know that, I know that, and I would love to hear from you how much time you're able to spend inside versus how much time you spend, say, in front of your screen. And no judgment, I'm the exact same way. In fact, I was just waiting in line to pick up a prescription today at Walgreens before doing this episode. And I realized, oh yeah, I was catching up on text messages and things that I had to do while I'm just waiting for my prescription, right? We're all plugged in 24/7. And in fact, studies show that we collectively, at least as Western citizens of developed countries, we spend about 90% of our time indoors, and that does not even include commuting time in your car, which to me, hello, that feels like being indoors, right? You're not exactly outdoors. So we're spending most of our time indoors, and obviously we use technology to work and to run our businesses, and we have to be plugged in quite a bit. But there are reasons that we want to reconnect with nature, and there's so many different ways that we can do it. Now, when you look at this scientifically, the past millennia, we have been outdoors. Our whole history as a human race, we've spent time in nature. We've spent time outside in natural elements, and it's really only been, in the past, decades or century, one could argue, that we've really spent less and less time outdoors and spent so much time exclusively indoors, and particularly now in the past recent, decade or two, in front of so much technology. So of course we can kind of know intuitively, right, that it's good for us to be outside, that it's good for our souls, that maybe too much time indoors or too much time staring at a screen is maybe not super ideal. But I'd love to get into some of the science behind why it's necessary. If we're really going to be functioning at our best, it's actually quite necessary. We're not just little vacuums that are living in this natural world. We are natural. We are part of the physical world. So of course it makes sense that our bodies, which are part of the natural world, actually depend on that natural world around us to thrive and to have everything that we need to be fully functional. So with that being said, exposure to more nature we'll look at some specifics in a moment, but it has had such an array when we actually look into science behind that, such an array of health benefits from stress levels to even making sure that we are neutralizing free radicals within our body. So let's get started with some different ways we can add more nature to our lives. First of all, let's talk about bringing the outdoors in. So having houseplants, which is typically what we often think of about, when we think of being exposed to plants, is having those plants inside if we're not getting out and necessarily spending a ton of time outside every day, is of course we can bring those houseplants inside. Now, I feel like houseplants have kind of had a moment, especially when it comes to succulents. In fact, I read recently, actually one of my fitness magazines of all places, that the search, like the keyword succulents, like the search term has actually, the usage of that search term has gone up, exponentially. I don't remember the figure, but exponentially in the past couple of years. So certainly it's become trendy. I know part of modern decor now. And you'll even see like on Instagram feeds, there's a lot of stock photography and really pretty photos around succulents and having houseplants around you. There's actually really great science behind this. Specifically, Psychology Today tells us that looking at studies done with people who have had exposure to potted plants in particular, actually have higher scores of attentiveness while they work. They have reduced blood pressure, increased productivity, isn't that just wild? And even an increase in job satisfaction just by having exposure to potted plants in the environment that you work and live. So part of this is chemical, right? The way that plants are made up chemically, they actually do purify the air and they balance out the carbon monoxide and oxygen levels of what we're breathing in and breathing out. So being able to neutralize the air around us and absorbing VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, which are pollutants in our environment, that's a really strong factor of being able to purify your space and be able to have a healthy environment around you. But there are also psychological benefits of being able to see that green, be exposed, even in just those small doses to nature, that have led to all these psychological benefits, which I just find fascinating. And the good news is that's super easy. Even if you have to spend 12 hours at your desk one day, having a couple of plants in your office and working environment can totally help mitigate some of those negative effects that you have from sitting at your computer indoors. Now, not everyone has a green thumb, and I'm the first to admit that I am not. True story. I actually spent an entire summer where my in-laws were away traveling and I was house sitting. I spent an entire summer watering their fake plants. I didn't know. I thought they were real. Oh, and those were the only plants that actually made it that summer. So I don't have a great track record with plants. I can totally relate with that. But if you do want to get started in bringing the outdoors in, there are some plants that are easier to take care of than others. Succulents are known for being pretty low care. So you can typically water them about once a week and really not have to do much more than that. In fact, it can even be kind of a fun activity. If you've been following me recently on Facebook or social media, you know that I've actually taken to doing less work on the weekends, which means trying to find more fun activities to fill in and enjoy. So if you're looking for a fun weekend activity, totally optional, but a little while back, I actually created my own succulent terrarium, which was super fun. So I'll link in the show notes to like a tutorial on how to put your own terrarium together. You could totally buy them pre-made. That's totally fine. But if you're looking for a way to really literally get your hands dirty and spend a little bit of time in nature and a fun activity, they're really in right now too. So you can find a lot of fun planters and ways to display them. And since doing research for this episode, I've actually been inspired to even add more of those, to now pull them up into my office and be able to enjoy them more. Full disclosure, I'm still not great. Even with the succulents, you know, my terrarium, it's doing okay. I've had it about 6 months, but it's starting to die out. But, you know, for the health benefits that it has and the psychological benefits of being able to have plants around you, hey, if I have to spend 30 minutes or 60 minutes once every 6 months and maybe $30 putting some plants together and then throw them out 6 months later and start over, hey, even that is still a pretty good benefit, I think, for the amount of time and money involved. So just a little idea for you there. You could even start doing your own tiny, tiny little bit of gardening and enjoy those benefits. And that is not the only way, though, to enjoy the benefits of nature. So we're now going to we've talked about bringing nature in. We are also going to be talking now about how to get out in nature and enjoy its full benefits. One strategy that you can try that may be surprising to you is a practice called earthing. Earthing is sometimes also called grounding. And I admit, when I first heard about this concept, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, I was a little skeptic. I thought it was a little new age, a little bit woo-woo. Even though I'm a yogi, I still am kind of an analytical yogi. I like science. I like being able to kind of look at evidence behind what it is that we practice and do. But there actually is more and more science coming to light that really strongly suggests that spending time in contact with the Earth's surface with a non-conductive material or no material between you and that ground, which we'll talk about in a moment, has fantastic anti-inflammatory effects. And intuitively, we know when we run through a field of grass barefoot, it feels good, right? I spent a lot of my childhood. I grew up in the Midwest. We had woods all around us, so I never had shoes on growing up. And you know, that kind of feels good, like being in contact with the earth, and you'll feel like the sand between your toes if you ever go on the beach. So we know intuitively that it feels good, but there's a biological reason, a biochemical reason that this feels good in the moment and that it actually is quite healthy for us. So the theory behind earthing, kind of a little bit of the science behind this, and I'm certainly not an electrician by any means or an expert in any of this, but what I've done for my research is that the whole theory is based on the fact that the Earth's surface has an electrical field. We carry an electrical field. You know that just through static electricity, if you've ever, rubbed your hands together during a dry winter and touched something, you might have felt that little pop. You know, we carry this electrical current. Now, the Earth's current is charged by negative charges. Now, we in our body, especially with increased exposure to chemicals, to stress, to all sorts of invaders of the natural order and homeostasis of our electromagnetic field, we have experienced inflammation when we are constantly exposed by free radicals. So chemical inflammation is brought about by those free radicals, which in small doses is totally great. That's what's going to lead to bringing more resources to the body where it's needed to heal a wound or give us that energy that we need to run away from a lion. But obviously, most of us are not doing that anymore these days. And so chronic inflammation is perpetuated, is kept going by the presence of free radicals. Now, free radicals have a positive charge and are missing, always looking for that extra electron to neutralize. Now, what happens in the case of chronic inflammation is that if there are not any other free electrons around in the environment to latch onto, those free radicals could end up attacking healthy tissue. What does any of this have to do with walking barefoot in the grass? Well, I'm about to tell you. So the Earth's surface carries with it a negative charge. So grass, natural bodies of water, dirt, rock, those are going to carry with them a negative charge. So what happens if we have this field of excess free radicals within our bodies and within the air, being exposed to those negative ions, that negative charge is thought to neutralize those free radicals and thus have a very antioxidant effect. So the science of this is still young, but there are several studies that have shown dramatic success stories in the reduction of inflammation when test subjects were subjected to extended periods of time in direct contact with the Earth's surface. So again, I mentioned, what exactly does that mean, direct contact with the Earth's surface? Well, it means either being barefoot or sitting on the ground, whether that's grass, whether that's sand, whether that's a rock, or not having anything between you and the ground that is non-conductive. So most of us wear shoes in daily life, and I still recommend that you do when you're out and about, but those rubber soles are non-conductive, which means we just don't get a whole lot of time in contact with the Earth's surface, with the ground. And so a very simple fix for reducing inflammation and easing cortisol levels, easing the stress hormone in the body, is just to spend time standing or laying outside without shoes on and without anything that I said that's non-conductive. So basically any man-made materials are typically going to be conductive. So you might be sitting on a blanket, on the ground, which has natural fibers. That's still going to be counted as technically grounding or earthing. Now, some other ways to do this that is super practical, which I love to get some of the benefits of earthing, is to surround yourself with moving water. So believe it or not, moving water also releases these negative ions. So not everyone can make it to the beach every day, and that's fine. But even having moving water within your home, so even when you take a shower, you're actually experiencing some of those earthing benefits because they're releasing negative ions into the air, which are neutralizing those positive ions of the free radicals in our system. So that's already a great way. So maybe that's an excuse to take a little bit longer of a shower. Maybe that also means you look at bringing in an indoor water fountain. Now, I'm not talking about a super expensive install on a water feature. Even just one of those simple, cheap, $20 table fountains could totally be a great alternative to necessarily getting outside and spending tons and tons of time outside. Of course, spending that time outside is always going to be best, but being able to have exposure to some moving water and the benefits of earthing, hey, I will take what I can get, and that's a simple way to do it. There are more sophisticated ways to take advantage of earthing. There are some products out there on the market that are supposedly able to ground you, to kind of connect with a grounding device outside the house. There's mats, there's sheets, there's even shoes that you can find that are that are conductive. The jury's still out for me. I have not tried any of these products. I'd say the simple solution is first just try to get outside and start with what's simple. If you love it, if you really notice a difference and you want more of it, then certainly maybe try some of those products as well. But start with what's free, what's available to you. I don't do earthing as much as I'd like, simply because I live in Arizona where we don't have grass. We don't have much grass. So standing barefoot on a bunch of thorns and gravel and dust isn't super appealing to me. So this is one thing that's a little bit harder if you do live in the desert. But again, there are ways you can take advantage of water features. When I'm hiking, I'll make a point to spend a little bit of an extra time maybe sitting on the rock so my body is in contact with the Earth's surface, even if my feet can't be. So those are some suggestions for you to try the practice of earthing. So studies show that even a half hour of earthing and an exposure to the Earth's surface can have dramatic effects on balancing the nervous system. I have also heard that earthing is a fantastic practice, for overcoming jet lag. So Sean Stevenson is a podcaster that I absolutely love. His podcast is called The Model Health Show, and he talks at length about how he uses the practice of earthing to overcome jet lag when he travels for business. So certainly something to look into. And if you'd like to learn more, I'm going to link in the show notes to his episode that is entirely dedicated to earthing. Okay, how are we doing? I am so excited about what we've covered so far. I hope these strategies are practical for you, and I have more of them. So let's keep going. We've talked about houseplants. We've talked about earthing. Let's talk about forest bathing. What? Yes, forest bathing is a thing now. It's been officially coined a term, and it began as a practice in the 1990s, so relatively recently, in Japan. So in Japan, they call this practice Shinrin Yoku. And at first it might sound a little silly to make it a thing. Like, what is it? It's spending time outside. Okay, so this is a little bit different. It doesn't stipulate that you have to be in contact with the surface of the earth. So this has a little bit less to do with the electromagnetic field and more to do with stress reduction and cortisol release and being able to have an effect on your blood pressure. So the Japanese started this practice again as a way to combat the overcrowded, indoor, fast-paced living that they were encountering in their big cities. So it can look a lot of different ways, but basically the concept is that you're spending time in nature, rather in the forest. For myself, that means that it's spending time in the desert. And it's done specifically not for exercise. So in an ideal world, right now, I still consider my hikes that I love to take in nice weather, I consider that a form of forest bathing or desert. I'm gonna have to come up with something fun that goes with desert dwelling, desert dancing, maybe, I don't know. So wherever you have, whatever environment you have, of course you adapt it to that. But the true art of forest bathing, or Shinrin Yoku, is being very mindful, not hurriedly moving. So if you're taking a walk, it's a very gentle stroll. You might incorporate a lot of sitting. And it's really tuning inward to your environment and tuning out the distracting thoughts, tuning out that end game of maybe getting your heart rate up or reaching a certain mileage point. And being able to pay more attention to those details around you, whether that's the rustling of the leaves or the shades of green, or the butterfly that's floating from one plant to another. So that is what it's intended to be in its pure official format and practice. But there are ways I think that we can also adapt it to make it even more practical for us, both within our day-to-day lives, as well as, when we can get out there and spend more extended periods of time, that's great. But I think there's other things that we can do to take even small little tidbits of this concept and be able to apply it to our everyday life. So, okay, where's the science behind this? I love a good study to show evidence that we're not just wasting our time running around the woods, because I know you're busy. You want to know that these strategies actually are doing something that's super helpful for your body. Well, one study in the Journal of European Applied Psychology actually showed a 7-point average drop in systolic blood pressure after 4 hours of being in nature. Now, I know 4 hours is a lot. That's not something you can do all the time, but if you look at the amount of time that's spent outdoors, 4 hours, as compared with 7-point drop in blood pressure on average, that's a significant drop in blood pressure. So most of us, it's recommended that we keep our blood pressure, the systolic blood pressure, under 140. So that could be the difference. If you're at 135, spending some time in nature, maybe say once a week, that could actually mean the difference between getting you to that healthy range of your blood pressure. So why is this so helpful? Why is it reducing our blood pressure? A lot of it does have to do with the effects of stress on the body and reducing the stress hormones in our body. So it allows being outside and exposed to nature in this calming atmosphere, allows the PNS, the parasympathetic nervous system, to function, which honestly, in this day and age, is kind of a major feat. We are so adept right now at being in the fight or flight mode, where our sympathetic nervous system is always firing, always driving, that our parasympathetic nervous system is really out of balance. So being able to be exposed and have this sense of calm and this sense of restoration is going to allow the parasympathetic nervous system to kick in, which is regulating the sense of homeostasis. It's allowing the body to be in optimal condition to heal. Now, another function of this and why this has such wonderful physical effects on our blood pressure is that the trees themselves actually release certain compounds called I don't think I'm pronouncing it correctly, I will be totally honest, phytoncides. Some botanists will probably kill me for that one. But these compounds are also shown to have a direct correlation with the stress hormones in our body, which is pretty cool. Now, like I said, there are ways that we can apply it to make it a little bit more practical if you don't have 4 hours to walk and meander slowly through nature. Even if you're just getting your workout outside, if you're taking that workout outside, there are studies that show that we have 50% more mental health benefit when we exercise outdoors than when we do indoors. So just simply moving your normal, workout routine outdoors can certainly take advantage of some of these benefits. And the other very cool thing about this is that you don't have to physically be outside to reap the benefits, of viewing nature. How cool is this? Hospital patients recovering from surgery actually show less pain and substantially quicker recoveries, less time in the hospital when they have views of nature. So if they're located, say, with like a window that's overlooking a tree, compared with a blank wall. What? That is crazy. So you don't technically even have to leave your house or leave a confined environment to be able to experience some of the benefits of being exposed to nature. In fact, if you set up your office such that your desk is close to a window, you're automatically going to reap some more benefits than just being inside, completely shut off from the outside world. In fact, office workers next to windows, there's several studies that show that they average much more sleep, about 46 minutes more sleep per night than those who work in cubicles or with no windows. And they report improved sleep quality and even report overall better quality of life. So, hey, again, you've got that 12-hour workday ahead of you that you just can't avoid. Scoot your desk over to a window where you're going to be exposed to light, even through that window pane, which is going to help your melatonin levels during the day. If you get exposure to the daylight during the day, that's going to regulate your melatonin so that at night it signals when you get that daylight exposure during the day. At nighttime, that actually signals your melatonin to kick on, right? Because it's like a time-delayed sense once it's had exposure to daylight that's actually going to help induce sleep in the evening. Yep. Am I blowing your mind? I think this stuff is absolutely fascinating. And there are other ways too that we can bring the concept of forest bathing and exposure to the outdoors and make it super practical. Again, we talked earlier about the benefits of bringing in indoor moving water, so maybe a water fountain on your table, like one of those little desktop fountains. And that we already talked about from an ion standpoint and neutralizing free radicals. But that also has been shown, just the concept of listening to moving water can have a very soothing effect. It has a long-standing coupling and association with meditation. So being able to have the sounds of nature around you. If you don't have a water fountain or water feature yet, and you want to get started today with being able to expose yourself to the benefits of natural surroundings, heck, download an app with nature sounds while you work or while you cook or while you do laundry. You're going to signal your brain waves to slow down, to relax, and to put you in a prime state of being for health. So I like the Nature Sounds app called Relax Melodies. I'm pretty sure it's free. I don't remember paying for it. And it's got lots of different options you can choose from, like a crackling fire or waterfall or waves at the ocean. Super soothing, super relaxing. And you can honestly tap into that anytime. You could even pipe it through, your Bluetooth when you are driving to help calm you during rush hour traffic. I might try that tomorrow. Other ways that you can expose yourself to nature if you are not maybe in the best of weather. So as we're approaching, in Arizona, we're approaching like the prime time of the season. So we are just getting geared up to be outside. But I know most of the country is getting ready for colder temperatures. So if the weather is inclement and you're using that as an excuse not to spend time outdoors, hey, you're not off the hook yet. Go for a drive in a scenic area. My husband, Jeff, and I have long espoused the kind of old-fashioned concept of a Sunday afternoon drive. So oftentimes if we're looking for something to do on a weekend afternoon, we'll go for a drive through the desert. 6 months out of the year here, it's way too hot to really get outside, and we get a little bit of cabin fever. So the next best thing for us is to go for a nice drive where we're at least viewing nature through the window and watching the effects of nature and being able to absorb some of the mental components of being in that peaceful state and in those peaceful surroundings. You also could try sitting under the stars at night. So maybe you don't have a beautiful scenic neighborhood where you live in, but maybe just spending some time, outdoors, maybe instead of watching that last episode of TV, maybe you and your significant other or partner or spouse are going for a walk under the stars. Maybe you're just sitting in your backyard, gazing up at the stars and reconnecting with our place in this world and taking a moment to realize that our lives are so much bigger than staring at our smartphones and hammering out that next blog post. Being able to reconnect and sense our space in the universe can be so profound. In fact, we did this the other evening. We went out on our roof. We have a deck on our roof in Arizona. The roofs are often flat. So we are lucky enough to have a rooftop deck that we just spent some time watching the stars, and it made us feel so, so calm. I hope these strategies have inspired you and excited you to find some creative ways to bring more nature into your life, even if you don't have a ton of time to get out there in the traditional sense of going out and like hanging out on the beach, right? We've brought a lot of practical strategies. Just to recap, we have talked about why you might want to consider bringing some houseplants into your work and living area. Even if you don't have a green thumb, start with succulents. And if you have to throw them out in 6 months and start over, hey, it's not the end of the world. I think it's still well worth it. We talked about the science behind a practice called earthing, which is coming into direct contact with the Earth's surface with either your feet or your body. So that could be by walking through the grass barefoot, or maybe sitting on a rock in nature on a walk. We also talked about forest bathing and being able to expose yourself either directly in nature, which of course is going to have the most health benefits, help reduce blood pressure and reduce the effects of stress and chronic inflammation. But we also came up with some hacks, if that's not readily accessible to us, to either watch the nature through windows, through a driving car, listen to nature sounds through a water fountain or through an app. And we talked about maybe winding down our days every now and then by spending some time watching the stars. If you want some more mind-body benefits that will help put you in the best state of mind so you're making clearer decisions within your business, you're more creative, you're less stressed, you're more able to enjoy the life that you're working so hard to create, I invite you to take advantage of my 7-day mindset mantra challenge. This 7-day challenge will actually send you a text message every day for a week with a specific mantra that will help calm and center you for the day. But these are not just random mantras. These are actually mantras that I've crafted specifically for the entrepreneurs. These are mantras that I use to focus on throughout the day that help combat the things that I feel like we uniquely worry about and struggle with as entrepreneurs. So to join my free 7-day mindset mantra challenge, you can do one of two things. First, you could go to wealthyboss.com/mindset mantras. Again, remember that Wealthy Boss is spelled W-E-L-L. So you can go to wealthyboss.com/mindset mantras, check your email, and you do have to follow the prompts to make sure that you're on that text message distribution list. You can also text the keyword mindset mantras to 33444, and I'll email you the instructions for getting into that challenge. I want to thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I'm so excited to come at you next week, where I'll be bringing back on another guest, interviewing Mitch Todd, who has his own podcast called Meditate with Mitch, and is also one of the founding fathers of the very popular conference podcast movement. Bye for now.